Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on the Chad Show. You can jump in as well. 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD, and you are on board the program. TheChadShow.com is how you can get online and see everything that's going on the webpage. And I got so much to get to today, but I want to start with Michael Moore. Yes, Michael Moore. I don't even understand how Michael Moore is relevant to anybody anymore. This guy has made a few entertaining propaganda films. No, they're documentaries. No, they're not. They're propaganda films because they're full of lies. They're full of spin. And if you actually go and talk to most of the people that were interviewed by Moore in these so-called documentaries, they'll tell you, that's not what I said. Man, he totally twisted that. Oh, he took that out of context. Wait a second. That's what Michael Moore's all about. And that's been documented time and time and time again, not just by me. But he still gets a lot of play because, I don't know. I really don't. I don't understand it, but he does. He gets a lot of play. He gets on all the late night shows, and he was on the Democracy Now! Podcast, I think it was, and he's talking about the Flint water crisis. You remember that back in, 2014, 2015, where the city had switched the water supply from one river to the other river, and then they said that people were dying from the water and children were being poisoned with lead. Well, now the numbers are totally in on that. They came in a couple years ago. That's not true either. I'm going to get you the details on that because there are so many people on the left, including Michael Moore, that still act like that's the thing. Well, he was talking about that, and he talked about how he would not rule out that black people were targeted as a reason for the problem with Flint's water. He would not rule out that they were targeted. Not that it was just bad work by the city government, but that they were targeted. This is how this guy thinks. So in the little talk, he says he doesn't believe that, America is really any better off racially than it's ever been. Listen to this. Cut one, please.
I refuse to participate in post-racial America. I refuse to say because we elected Obama that suddenly that means everything's okay. White people have changed. White people have not changed. Two-thirds of all white guys voted for Trump. That means anytime you see three white guys walking at you down the street toward you, two of them voted for Trump. You need to move over to the other sidewalk because these are not good people that are walking towards you. You should be afraid of them.
How about that? I don't even know if I need to say anything other than that. How about that? Michael Moore is a racist. He's racist against white people. I mean, isn't that what you would say if he said this about any other race on the planet? If he said this about Asian people, if he said this about Hispanic people, if he said this about black people, if he said this about any type of ethnicity or race you can even dream up, he would be called a racist. But because he says it about white people, well, he's just speaking truth. What? This is how Michael Moore, Hillary Clinton, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, all of the media, most of the celebrities think of you. Simply because you thought Trump's policies were better than Hillary Clinton's. That's it. Because you voted for Trump over Hillary Clinton, you are not just somebody who has a different opinion. You are evil. You are racist. You are homophobic. You are transphobic. You're xenophobic. You're every kind of phobic I can think of. You're an awful, evil, deplorable. And you really don't deserve to live. And you're dangerous. And we should even cross the street when we see people like you because you are dangerous and they should be afraid of you. I mean, really just walk through this thing. Play it one more time. Cut one.
I refuse to participate in post-racial America. I refuse to say because we elected Obama that suddenly that means everything's okay. White people have changed. White people have not changed. Two-thirds of all white guys voted for Trump. That means anytime you see three white guys walking at you down the street toward you, two of them voted for Trump. You need to move over to the other sidewalk because these are not good people that are walking towards you. You should be afraid of them.
Let's take it one little step at a time. So he says, I refuse to participate in post-racial America. In other words, he never wants to get to the point where we actually quit focusing on race. I thought the whole point used to be Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream was that there would be a day where his children were judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. Michael Moore doesn't even want that day. In fact, most of the left doesn't want that day. They don't think we should ever move to a point where we're just treating each other equally. No, 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 no. That's not real equality. Huh? So he doesn't want that. The only thing I agree with is when he says, I refuse to say because we elected Obama that suddenly means everything is okay. I totally agree with that. I don't think it was okay at all. He was a horrible president. I didn't want the guy elected at all. But I also do agree with what he was trying to say. What he was trying to say is just because we elected a black president, half black, well, yeah, that part I don't understand either. If you point that out somehow, that's bad. I think it's great that we had a biracial president because I think it also shows that we're a biracial nation. We're not just one type of anything. Now, I wish it was a different biracial president. I wish it had been a conservative. I wish he'd had better policies. But what Moore is really trying to say is just because we elected Obama doesn't mean no one is racist, that everything is perfect. I totally agree with that. Of course there are racist people. There are racist people like Michael Moore out there. And there are racist people who are racist against black people, too. There are. There are racist people who are white, black, Asian, Hispanic. Every race has racist people. But thankfully, that number is getting smaller and smaller. Because he goes, I refuse to believe that means everything's okay. The white people have changed. White people have not changed. Okay, excuse me. It would have been nice if the interviewer had pushed back a little and maybe said, at all? First of all, we're lumping all white people together, except for people like Michael Moore, of course. But you other white people, you guys haven't changed at all. So you're saying white people as a whole, which I hate to lump everybody into a category, but he did. So you're saying, Michael Moore, that white people as a whole have not changed ever? Like today is the same as during slave times? That white people still treat black people that way and still think of them that way and still want to own them? And it hasn't changed at all since Jim Crow days where they said, I wouldn't even sit at a counter with somebody who is black. I wouldn't drink out of the water fountain. That hasn't changed at all, huh, Mike? Nobody. Do you know anybody who is like that? I don't know a single white person, and I know a lot of white people. I have white friends. I know a lot of white people. None of my friends are what Michael Moore thinks of Trump voters. I don't know a single friend of mine that would do anything like what Michael Moore's talking about. They want everyone treated equally. They don't care what skin color you are. Here's why they like Trump. They like the tax cut. They like that he says America should come first from our own government. They like the fact that he wants the economy to start chugging again, and it has. They like the fact that he doesn't want to let China get away with it on us. They like that he doesn't want to start a war every other day. I mean, you can go right down the list of things that they like that have nothing to do with what people like Michael Moore and Hillary Clinton say. 2/3 of all white guys voted for Trump. That means anytime you see 3 white guys walking at you down the street toward you, 2 of them voted for Trump. Well, of course, that's not necessarily true, but that's okay. You need to move to the other side of the sidewalk. These are not good people that are walking towards you. You should be afraid of them. So because they voted for Trump, you should be afraid of them because they're evil. They're deplorable. They're dangerous. Well, one of the other guys interviewing him for Democracy Now! Had a little bit to say about the 2 out of 3 guys who were white voting for Trump. Let's hear cut 2.
Yeah, the third one is you and me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
We're traitors. We're traitors to our race. That's how they see us too, by the way.
Yeah. So what happened was the other guy said, and the other guy probably voted for him too, and that's where Michael Moore said, the other guy is us, but we're traitors to our race. That's how they see us. Really? I don't see. It's so funny to me when the left tries to think they understand conservatives. I don't see anybody as part of a race that they have to obey or betray. I don't look at my white friend and think, oh, my white friend did XYZ. He's a traitor to the race. I don't look at my black friend and say, oh, my black friend didn't do XYZ. He's a traitor to his race. I don't look at my Hispanic friend, Asian friend, whatever. Do you look at people like that? So what would a black person do, Michael Moore, to be a, quote, traitor to his race? What would a white person do to, quote, be a traitor to his race? I don't have any allegiance to a race. I have an allegiance to my family. I have an allegiance to human beings. I have an allegiance to my country. I have an allegiance to my God. I don't have an allegiance to the color of my skin. Michael Moore thinks you do. See, this is how they think, so this is how they think you think. It's called projection. Michael Moore is putting on you what he thinks. And that's why you'll find so many on the left will get so mad if a black person happens to be conservative. They're the ones that are calling them traitors to their race. They'll say it right out loud. They'll call him an Uncle Tom. Simply because they believe in conservative philosophy of less government and more freedom. Just because of that, they'll be called every name in the book. They'll be called a traitor to their race. They'll be called awful names like Oreo and banana and all these other slurs against somebody who, well, you're black, but you're white on the inside. Oh, you're Asian, but you're white on the inside. How about the fact that you're just a human being? No. No, because remember now, this is from the tolerant liberal Democrat Party that Michael Moore's a part of. So he sees you as your skin color. And he's the one that supposedly is not racist. But when somebody like you or me, when we see you as an individual that we want to talk to and get to know, and we think you can believe whatever you want to believe, and you're not tied into a belief system based on your skin color, then we're the racist ones. And we haven't even gotten into the stuff about the Flint water crisis yet, because he's lying about that too. And Michael Moore came out for his prediction for 2020 on who's going to win the presidency. That might surprise you. We're going to get into all that in just a second. Love your thoughts on it. 844-DIG-CHAD. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you in. We're just getting warmed up. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
My name is Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show. 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD. We're talking about a couple of things Michael Moore said on a Democracy Now! Podcast, and I want to let you hear cut one again, because this is where Michael Moore had just finished suggesting that the Flint water crisis, he would not rule out black people were targeted as a reason for the ongoing problem. Cut one.
I refuse to participate in post-racial America. I refuse to say because we elected Obama that suddenly that means everything's okay. White people have changed. White people have not changed.
Not at all.
Two-thirds of all white guys voted for Trump. That means anytime you see three white guys walking at you down the street toward you, two of them voted for Trump. You need to move over to the other sidewalk, because these are not good people that are walking towards you. You should be afraid of them.
See, if you voted for Trump, you're not good. You should be feared. You're obviously racist. Now, you might have voted for Obama once or twice. Doesn't matter. That doesn't get you out of jail free. Come on. You know you're a white guy. You haven't changed. You're still a racist SOB and deplorable, according to Hillary Clinton. This is how they think about you. And it's why people are getting ticked off. You know, because you know you're not a racist. You can't prove you're not a racist. And one of the worst things, if not the worst thing you can be called in this country, is a racist. So you've got these snobs like Michael Moore, the celebrities, the so-called media elite, and political Democratic so-called elite, all looking down their noses at you, calling you every name in the book simply because you disagree with their policies and you agree more with the policies of Donald Trump. And you're tired of it. I know I am. And by the way, this thing was based on him starting out talking about Flint. Well, guess what the truth about Flint is? Now, listen, there was a problem in Flint, Michigan with the water. There's no doubt about it. And the municipal government really messed up. And then the governor compounded it. And there were a lot of problems. But nobody was targeted. In fact, the numbers came in back in July of 2018. And Kyle Smith did a great report on this. The New York Times did a great report on this, where they looked at a study. They did a study. It was called Blood Lead Levels of Children in Flint, Michigan, 2006 to 2016. Okay? And they found out that the children of Flint did not have any health problems from that water. They didn't even get put at risk from that water. Now, I know you're probably, oh, Greg, come on, I saw the news. I know you did, and the news was wrong. The numbers are in. Flint, Michigan water, 2014, 2015. Medically speaking, the lead in the water turned out to be a non-event. What do you mean? The increase in lead content in children's blood after the problems with the water, 0.11 micrograms per deciliter. Well, see? That's within the range of normal fluctuation. Listen to this from two experts in the New York Times. A similar increase of 0.12 micrograms per deciliter occurred randomly in 2010-2011. It is not possible, statistically speaking, to distinguish the increase that occurred at the height of the contamination crisis from other random variations over the previous decade. Let me translate that. There's no way to tell there even was a crisis. There is no way to tell from this water that there was any crisis at all of lead in the Flint, Michigan water. At all. It's a statistical anomaly. It's a blip. It's nothing. Nothing. Well, what about all the children that were treated for lead? Not a single one was treated for lead poisoning in Flint, Michigan. Not one. Michael Moore is not going to rule out they might have been targeted. I got more on this from Michael Moore in just a second. Greg Knapp in for Chad.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
And my name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show. You can jump in at 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD. We're talking about Michael Moore and his nonsense about how, you're an awful, evil white person if you voted for Trump. In fact, you're so dangerous that when people see you coming, they should cross to the other side of the street because, white people haven't changed at all. And what? Yeah, white people haven't changed at all. Who cares that Obama was elected? White people haven't changed at all. Ever? First of all white people are the same. Well, no, not all white people, just the white people that voted for Trump. Oh, okay. So all white people who voted for Trump because they're evil, awful, racist people. Well, of course. This is what they think of you. And this was right before Moore pointed out that he could not rule out that black people were targeted as a reason for the water crisis in Flint. And as I mentioned, yes, there were mistakes made. There's no doubt about it. But the numbers are in. Research has been done. Not a single child was treated for lead poisoning at all in Flint because they weren't poisoned by lead. In fact, they could only find a 0.11 microgram per deciliter increase in lead from the crisis. That's within the range of normal fluctuation. A similar increase of 0.12 micrograms per deciliter occurred randomly from 2010 to 2011. Not a single person treated. I mean, listen, this is still bad. I'm not saying that what they did wasn't wrong. They did mess up, and it wasn't because they switched from one river as the water supply to the other river for the water supply. It wasn't even just the pipes that was the problem. It's that the new water source wasn't treated properly with a certain phosphate that limits the corrosion of the pipes. Once they put that back in, then everything was fine. So they messed up, but nobody was targeted. And thank God nobody was even harmed by it. The Legionnaire disease that actually killed some people had nothing to do with that. The level at which the Centers for Disease Control recommends medical treatment is 45 micrograms per deciliter. So how many children in Flint tested at that level? You ready? 0. 0. Ever hear Michael Moore talk about this and give you these stats? No, of course you haven't. Have you ever heard any celebrity tell you about these stats? No, because the stats came out 3 years after this happened. The authors of this piece in the New York Times and of the research, they pointed out that 5 micrograms of lead per deciliter is considered a reference level. Now, that's not where somebody's health is in jeopardy, but it just says, hey, you know what? You might start looking at why there's more lead here. Before the changeover in the water supply, 2.2% of Flint children tested above the reference level. After the changeover, 3.7% did. But just 20 years ago, 45% of the children there tested at that level. And in fact, in 2016, at the end of the so-called crisis, the blood lead levels for children in Flint tested at an all-time low. An all-time low. In fact, Flint now, their water's fine. There are at least 3,800 areas in the country where the blood lead levels are twice the level of Flint. You hear that anywhere? So this is why you got to do more research than what you're seeing on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, even Fox. Because we're not getting the whole story on this stuff. Because if it's not breaking news, then you don't hear it. And we never get the follow-ups like this. This came out in 2018. This came out July 2018. Do you remember this on the front page of the New York Times? No, the New York Times actually is the one that reported it. Do you remember it? No. Did it get picked up everywhere? No. In fact, as Kyle Smith points out, and the New York Times reported as well, celebrities visiting Flint were asking to see the lead-poisoned ward at the Children's Hospital. You know, I've come in from L.A., and I want to put this on my Instagram page. Can you take me to where the children are being treated for the lead poisoning? Like, what? You know, all the children that, you know, were so sick from the lead-filled water. We saw it on TV. No, we don't have an area where the children have been poisoned by lead or treated for lead poisoning because there was no lead poisoning. They really were. The celebrities came in and they really wanted to see, where did you treat them for the lead poisoning? There was none. Michael Moore, though, of course, he'd been making claims all along. In 2016, one of the things he said, people's homes in Flint are now worth nothing because they can't be sold. Well, Flint's average home price did dip a little bit during the water so-called crisis, but certainly not to zero. And in 2017, 2018, the prices went up 39%. But other than that, yeah, good job, Michael. So that was his basis to then attack you as a Trump supporter because you're a bad person. Yep, you're a bad person. Okay, one last thing from Michael Moore on this. 2020, I told you about this. I'm sorry, I haven't paid it off. Michael Moore has a prediction for 2020. Who do you think he thinks is going to win the presidency? Bernie? No, not Bernie. Warren? Nope, not Warren. Trump. What? Okay, here's what he said. I think if the election were held today, Hillary won by 3 million popular votes. I believe whoever the Democrat is next year is going to win by 4 to 5 million popular votes. No question in my mind. The people who stayed home, sat on the bench, they're going to pour out. California, New York, you know, but also in Texas, whatever. I mean, places that Trump will probably win. But yeah, there's going to be a much higher percentage of people voting against him. The problem is, if the vote were today, I believe he would win the electoral states he would need. Because living out there, I will tell you, his level of support has not gone down 1 inch. Now, there's where Michael Moore is exactly right. He goes on. In fact, I'd say it's even more rabid than it was before because they're afraid now. They're afraid he could lose because they watched his behavior. So they are voracious on their appetite for Donald Trump. That's the bad news. And there's where I think Michael Moore's wrong. People are not bigger supporters of Trump right now because they think he can lose. People who were supporting him and who have become bigger supporters or people that were kind of on the fence and now they've become supporters? The reason is they see what the Democrats have been doing, and the media, and so many of the celebrities. But I repeat myself. What they've seen is they've been trying to impeach this guy since even before he was inaugurated. They've thrown everything they can at him. They've gone through investigation after investigation that has turned out nothing. And they've impeached him over a phone call, over withholding some aid that he actually got, over starting an investigation that actually didn't start, over an investigation into corruption that sure looks like there was a lot of corruption there with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, and that's kind of important for us to know if the vice president of the United States at the time was involved in some corruption in getting a prosecutor in a foreign country fired. That's kind of important to know. If Ukraine had anything to do with the CrowdStrike company that worked on the DNC server, that's kind of important to know. And that's what you're going to impeach him over? And then you look at the economy and you look at a lot of the promises that Trump kept and the things that he told you he was going to do, and people are more supportive of him now because of how they're seeing the Democrats, the celebrities, and the media react to him. Maybe that's why. And because people like you, Michael Moore, and because people like Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi and so many in the media and so many celebrities are calling us every name you can think of simply because we disagree with you politically, while you tell us that you are all about love and tolerance. Maybe that's why. You think? So Moore said the good news is 70% of the electorate next year will be women, people of color, and young adults who he says are on our side. Really? This is how Michael Moore thinks. That's why he said, these Trump people see white guys that vote for somebody else and say that we're a traitor to our race. No, we don't. You're the one that talks about race all the time. Moore continued, what we have to do is make sure we don't give them another Hillary Clinton to vote for. The Democrats who are encouraging moderation go to the center, you know. Wait, what was that? The Democrats who are going to the center? Who's going to the center? Have you watched the debates? Tell me, who's going to the center? All they do every debate is go farther and farther to the left. Everyone on the stage, please raise your hand if you think illegal aliens should get free health care from the government. Every hand goes up. Oh, yeah, we're going to the center quick. Yeah, we are. Well, please raise your hand if you think we should have Medicare for all. Every hand goes up. Please raise your hand if you think we should have free college education. Half the hands go up. I mean, who is running to the center? 90,000 wanted to send a message to the Democratic Party. You forgot us a long time out there, and we will not put up with this anymore. We're not going to vote for Trump, but we're not going to tolerate you sending us another Republican light Democrat. Hillary Clinton was a Republican light Democrat? All right. And then he goes on. His last little bit, I think, is interesting. He talks about polarization. He said polarization is always talked about like it's a bad thing, Moore said. I think it's a good thing. I think if you think women should have the right to vote, I don't think there's a middle position on that. Are there people who are saying women shouldn't have the right to vote? Who's running on the platform that women shouldn't have the right to vote? You see these straw men he sets up? He's not going to put a real issue out there. You either believe that women should vote or women shouldn't vote. I agree. Then he goes on. You either believe that a fertilized egg is a human being or not. There's no middle ground there. Oh, he did put a real issue out there. You're right. How about this, Michael Moore? You either believe that a baby in utero at 5, 6, 7 months that has a heartbeat, brain waves, fingers, toes, eyes, reacts in the womb to stimuli. You either believe that's a human being or not, don't you? Well, no, that's just that's something different. That's a woman's body. That's totally different. That's I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Thanks, Michael. What do you think? 844-DIG-CHAD. Get you on board for that. 844-DIG-CHAD. Oh, Trump's in trouble for retweeting an article that names the whistleblower. But I thought we were told that we don't know who the whistleblower is. Well, names who people think is the whistleblower. But if we don't know, then how could he be? Quit playing those semantic games with me. All right. My name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad. We'll talk about that next on The Chad Show.
Separation anxiety? That's dumb. Check out Chad 24/7 at his website, ChadBensonShow.com, and on iTunes, free. The Chad Benson Show. Never feel lonely again.
And my name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on the Chad Show. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board. 844-DIG-CHAD. Love to know your thoughts. You can also go online, thechadshow.com. I've got an update for you on President Trump and his tweeting. President Trump tweets? Yeah, every once in a while he'll throw one out there and retweets a little bit, too. It drives people crazy. But you know what? A lot of people like it because, hey, this is the president unvarnished, man. He's a regular dude. He's just talking to you. You know, we really need to reduce the amount of power we put in our president, in his every utterance, in everything he does. That is not how the founder set this up. Really, he was kind of like the Speaker of the House, but for the entire government, where he got to say something, and he did have the veto power, but you could override it, and he wasn't supposed to be as powerful as we have the president be now. It really wasn't. And we get way twisted about it. But, okay, I understand. He's the president, blah, blah, blah. He retweeted an article which names the whistleblower, according to media. Oh, sorry, alleged whistleblower. Yeah, because, I mean, we're told that we don't know who the whistleblower is. I mean, everybody knows. No, nobody knows. The Washington Examiner had an article on this weeks ago where they said, look, this is who the whistleblower is, and everybody knows, but nobody wants to name him because they're acting like somehow there's a law that you can't name a whistleblower. That's not true. That is absolutely just not true. The whistleblower's not supposed to have his job in jeopardy for blowing the whistle, but it doesn't mean that he gets to remain anonymous and say whatever he wants to, and the person he's accusing of committing whatever and being impeached and removed from office can't face his accuser. And it doesn't mean that the people who are trying to decide on something as important as an impeachment trial, and as impeachment really in the House, shouldn't get to know who this person is. I mean, the Washington Examiner piece showed that this is a guy who was tied to Democrats, worked for Obama, worked closely with Biden, had coordinated with Schiff before the impeachment hearings in the House, worked with Clapper. I mean, we're not supposed to know all that? No, as a whistleblower, I have to be totally anonymous. No, there's nothing that says that. President Donald Trump retweeted an article Thursday night, which contained the name of a person alleged to be the whistleblower who filed a complaint relating to the commander-in-chief's dealings with Ukraine President Zelensky. It is the first time Trump has promoted the name in any matter. But he's not really the whistleblower, is he? He's the guy who reported what somebody else told him he heard. Basically a rumor guy, isn't it? I mean, basically gossip. Really, that's what it is. Why didn't the guy who told this guy come forward? That would be the real whistleblower. I mean, if you're the one who heard it, then aren't you supposed to come forward? Well, he wouldn't, so I had to. So you come forward with hearsay evidence that could never be used in a criminal court, and you happen to be a diehard Democrat and worked very closely with Joe Biden. You worked for Obama. Well, yeah, but he also worked for Trump. Yeah, he was held on. That was probably a big mistake. The Washington Examiner has now also pointed out, by the way, that Judicial Watch, the conservative watchdog, is suing the CIA and the Justice Department for the communications of this CIA analyst, Eric Ciaramella, I believe is how you pronounce his name. So, but people are very upset. The attorney for the whistleblower very upset. Trump's campaign re-election account is called the Trump War Room, okay? And it engaged with the whistleblower's attorney, Mark Zaid. The attorney went after Senator Marsha Blackburn, Republican Tennessee, for her comments about the whistleblower, called on her to step down from the Senate Whistleblower Caucus. Well, the Trump War Room tweeted out, it's pretty simple. The CIA, quote, whistleblower, end quote, is not a real whistleblower. That's what I was talking about. Yeah. And then they tweeted out the article, the Washington Examiner one, that says Schiff hired the former NSC colleague of the alleged whistleblower, Eric Ciaramella. If you haven't read that piece, you should read it. That was the article, the first one that pointed out who this alleged whistleblower probably is. So now Judicial Watch says, hey, we need some information on this guy. And they filed Freedom of Information Act requests in November seeking communications between Ciaramella and former FBI agents Peter Strzok, attorney Lisa Page, former FBI Director Andrew McCabe, Special Counsel Robert Mueller's office, filed a request with the CIA for Ciaramella's emails between June 1, 16 and November 12, 19. The whistleblower continues to work on issues relating to Russia and Ukraine. He's 33 years old. He was Ukraine Director of National Security Council at the end of Obama's administration, and he still was working for the Trump administration. He worked closely with Vice President Joe Biden, attended a State Department banquet at Biden's invitation, and I agree with Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton that there is a significant public interest in this dude's actions. CIA operative Ciaramella is documented to be involved in Russia collusion investigation, was a key CIA operative on Ukraine in both the Obama and Trump White Houses. We kind of think we have a right to know more about this. My name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad. This is The Chad Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
And this is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show. 844-DIG-CHAD. Get you on board. Let everybody know what you think. 844-DIG-CHAD. Also, you can go online, thechadshow.com. And don't forget, of course, he's on those crazy things like Twitter. You can find him there as well. We got a lot to talk about. I got to talk a little bit about the impeachment for sure, just to let you know the latest and what's going on. I got some great audio here from Chuck Schumer, from Dershowitz and others. And then I want to get you into some more good news. I got a lot of good news for you. And maybe some troubling news about your electric car and going vegetarian. Well, we got that. And before the hour's out, Elizabeth Warren called a liar by her brother? And something went wrong with the Biden Christmas card. All of that coming up on The Chad Show. 844-DIG-CHAD, get you in. 844-DIG-CHAD, sorry. Got to slow my mouth down just a little bit. I'm kind of a fast talker. You got to listen faster, okay? Here's a speedometer. Tell me if I'm going too fast. Let me start with a little bit on the impeachment. Peter Roth writes for Newsweek. He's a contributing editor, and he has a piece, because you wouldn't normally think Newsweek would have like a kind of middle-of-the-road take. I mean, they've really been going left lately. Well, Peter Roth says, listen, Nancy Pelosi's playing political games with the U.S. Constitution. Newsweek is saying that? Well, no, at the end it says this, Newsweek, the views expressed in this article are the writer's own. I mean, that's not Newsweek. But Peter Roth is writing, Nancy Pelosi is blowing it. She's waiting to transmit the Articles of Impeachment to the Senate, and she claims she's doing it for a fair trial. Well, the problem is she's setting a bad precedent. She's putting politics ahead of the U.S. Constitution. And Roth is nailing it. I'm like, wow, this is a Newsweek? I had to look at it a couple times. For all the work that's gone into addressing the charges against President Donald Trump, it's hard to argue they rise to the level of impeachable offenses. The charge of obstruction of Congress could just as easily be presented as a justifiable defense of executive power for which ample precedent exists. You know what he's talking about there? The Democrats demanded that some of President Trump's aides testify. He claimed executive privilege. They claimed that was obstruction of justice, obstruction of Congress. But doesn't every president claim executive privilege? Well, yeah. Didn't Bill Clinton claim that during his impeachment? Well, yeah. And what happened? Well, the Republicans took him to court and he lost at the Supreme Court level. Couldn't they have done that with Trump? Well, yeah. Why didn't they? They wanted to get this done before Christmas. And they thought they might lose. So it's better just to claim it's obstruction of Congress. The exact same thing that Clinton did. Oh, yeah, but it's different because he has an R after his name. And he's Bad Orange Man. So Peter Roth goes on. Said the allegation that he abused the power of his office is likewise flawed. Yeah, and he goes into exactly what we've been saying from the beginning, that you could interpret the call between President Trump and Zelensky as a quid pro quo. You could try to interpret it as bribery, but there's no proof of a quid pro quo, and there's no proof of bribery. In fact, you could just as easily interpret the call as President Trump trying to get another president to work with him to root out corruption in both countries. Root out the corruption in Ukraine and root out the corruption in America. Because if a sitting vice president, Joe Biden, did help push out a prosecutor in Ukraine, in part because his son was being investigated, because his son was sitting on an energy board that was paying him a lot of money, even though he had no knowledge in energy, couldn't speak Ukrainian, and really had no business being there at all except his last name was Biden, that might be something we should look into. You think? Back to Roth. He says, remember early on how House Speaker Nancy Pelosi opined on the gravity of impeachment, the need for bipartisanship. Of course, she did get a bipartisan decision in the House. Some of the Democrats voted with the Republicans. Not quite what she was looking for. And so Roth quotes Oklahoma Republican U.S. Representative Tom Cole. After running a totally partisan and closed impeachment process in the House, Pelosi now wants an open and bipartisan process in the Senate. That is the height of political hypocrisy, end quote. And yeah, that is exactly it. Because if you look at the process in the House, it was absolutely unfair. The minority party in Congress's right to mount a defense of the president was routinely impeded by the process that the Democrats devised. In other words, the minority did not get to call their own witnesses. They did not get their own lawyers in there. They did not get all the kind of stuff that you would expect. And now Pelosi waits. Democrats thought the Mueller report was going to get it for them. It turned out to be a big fat nothing burger. They had to settle for an innovative interpretation of a phone call between Trump and Zelensky. And of course, both Trump and Zelensky deny there was any quid pro quo, deny there was any pressure put on, deny there was any arrangement at all ever on the table for this. And the Democrats won't even acknowledge that Hunter Biden's paid membership on the board of Ukrainian gas company Burisma, while his father was the point man for the U.S. government on Ukraine policy, looks suspicious. Even Joe Biden has a hard time answering the question why his son was on that board. Even Hunter Biden has a hard time answering that question. And who among us won't say, at least in their heart of hearts, that payments of $1 million a year to the well-connected son of the vice president by an energy company operating in a country with all the political integrity of Chicago isn't at least worth looking into? Boom. There it is. And Roth finishes with this. Pelosi and her allies are giving America the permanent impeachment. She's messing with the Constitution, trying to overturn the results of the last election, influence the outcome of the next, and she may succeed, but it may not be in the way she intends. That's good stuff from Peter Roth, Newsweek. Stuff that we've been saying for weeks. And I think you'll find that's what more and more Americans are starting to come to believe. But no, Chuck Schumer's still out there talking about trials and witnesses and documents. Let's hear cut 3, please, from Chuck Schumer.
It's hard to imagine a trial not having documents and witnesses. If it doesn't have documents and witnesses, it's going to seem to most of the American people that it is a sham trial, a show trial, not to get at the facts. It's simply about getting the truth.
Really? Because when Schumer was involved in the Clinton impeachment trial in the Senate, he actually voted to not even have a trial. He also said that there shouldn't be any witnesses. Isn't that interesting? Changed a little bit now, hasn't it? The House had plenty of time for witnesses, and they chose not to continue to try to bring them because they said they had overwhelming evidence. Nobody could possibly believe that President Trump isn't guilty of criminality. Nobody could possibly believe that he shouldn't be removed from office. If it was so overwhelming, why do you even need one more witness? Alan Dershowitz, liberal, lawyer, big-time Democrat. Democrats hate him now because he's standing firm more on the Constitution than he is on party. He had a couple things to say about the Constitution. Here's cut 4 from Dershowitz.
The real victims here are the American people and the Constitution. The Constitution has been damaged by this ploy being used by Nancy Pelosi, who I have long admired. But this is a very bad time for the United States Constitution.
I love the music in the background. That just gives it a little extra gravitas. Yeah, Dershowitz is like, look, this is hurting the Constitution. Exactly right. And this is setting it up that this will be what we do with every president from here on out. Nancy Pelosi really has given us the permanent impeachment. They're talking about, oh yeah, we impeached him once, we can impeach him again. And as long as they have the majority, they can. All they got to do is get their people to do it, and they can do it. And you wonder, is that going to tip some of these House elections coming up next November? Dershowitz wasn't done. He said, they accused President Trump of abuse of power. Well, cut 5.
This is obstruction of the Senate. Exactly the same charge they've made against the president. This is an abuse of power. Exactly the same charge they've made against the president. It's wrong constitutionally, it's wrong morally, and it's wrong politically.
Tell us what you really think. I wish you would just, cut the little soft words and get right to it. Come on, man. That's Alan Dershowitz. Is anything he said wrong? Nancy knows this. She doesn't care. It's all about politics. And that's why when they try and go after Mitch McConnell, Mitch McConnell's not being fair and balanced. He says that he's going to work with the Trump administration during this trial, if there is one. You think Chuck Schumer is unbiased and remaining neutral? You think Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, all these people are senators. They're all part of the jury. They're all unbiased. The ones running for president said in the last debate what they would do to encourage the American people to understand why Trump should be removed from office. That doesn't sound like a impartial jury to me, does it to you? But only Mitch McConnell's the one that's supposed to be as pure as the driven snow. Yeah. All right. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD and you're in. I want to also get you some good news. I like to bring the good news, and especially as this new year is coming. So I was looking around today, and here are some of the headlines on the economy that I grabbed from Drudge. It says Santa rally slays records. NASDAQ tops 9,000. Amazon stock is up 24.4%. Apple's on a high. World's richest earn $1.2 trillion. Oh, well, that's horrible. Well, those who are earning the lower wages are seeing their wages increase at a more rapid pace than people higher up in the food chain. That's a good thing, right? Private jet sales are up. Wages are rising fastest in a decade. That's good for everybody who has a job. Oh, yeah, and there are more job openings in America than there are people looking for work. We are at an all-time low unemployment for black men and Hispanic men. That's a pretty good thing. We've got $17 trillion added to the global stock markets in this last year. We've got $1 trillion of American money coming back to America since President Trump put his tax cuts through. Some pretty good stuff. Pretty good. And I haven't even gotten into some great news about energy in this country. I'm going to hit that in just a second. 844-DIG-CHAD, get you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD. I'm Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
I, you, he, she, it. Lucy is a girl.
Point of personal privilege. Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Shut up, boo. Ain't nobody got time for that.
This is the Chad Benson Show.
And I hope all of you have a happy new year. Yes, all of you. That's the only pronoun I'm using for now. 844-DIG-CHAD, get you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD, my name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad, and I love to give you the good news. How about this one? This is all about our energy. And it's a great piece here, very well researched, and doggone it, I can't believe it printed off the page. I can't even tell you. Oh, Axios. Thank you. I found it. Okay, good. Axios. It's from Axios. It says the decade that blew up energy predictions. And so it goes right through them. The Energy Information Administration here in the United States puts out these projections years in advance and what they think is going to happen. And now we can compare and see how accurate were they. Oil production and prices. In 2010, the U.S. Energy Information Administration projected that now we would be producing about 6 million barrels of oil a day. Guess how much we're producing a day now? 12 million. What? Yeah, they thought we'd be producing about 6 million barrels a day. We're producing 12 million barrels a day. They also predicted oil prices would be about $100 a barrel. Nope, we're at 60. How does this happen? Well, we're using horizontal drilling. We're now using hydraulic fracking. We had a lot of state lands and private lands that were used. Yes, Obama said no on federal lands. Too bad we went around him. He's trying to claim some credit for it now. All this energy improvement started on my watch. No, it didn't. It started in spite of you, not because of you. We had to go around you. You were the one that said just drill baby wouldn't work. You were the one that said we'd never be an energy exporter. You were the one that said we had to change all of this to windmills and solar panels. And we said there's just no way we can do that right now. We need this energy. And so we did drill and all the above. And guess what? It's working. Oil imports, okay? The expectation in 2010 was that by now we'd be importing 8 million barrels of petroleum. We actually exported in September 89,000 barrels of petroleum. That's the net. We export a lot more than that, but we also import some. A lot of it has to do with distribution. But we have a net export now of 89,000 barrels of oil. Boom. How about this one? Natural gas production. Well, our prediction was the Energy Information Administration, they predicted that by now we'd be doing about 20 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. We're doing 30 trillion. That's a big deal. That is a big, big number. We are the number one producer of natural gas in the world. We are the number one producer now of oil in the world. In the world, baby. The EIA had projected coal electricity would remain dominant and natural gas would remain relatively stable or even drop. Not true. The opposite's happening. Now, some of that's from environmental regulations. But the other part is how plentiful the supply of natural gas has become because of horizontal drilling and fracking. And it burns cleaner than coal does. And the EIA projected back in 2010 that U.S. energy-related carbon dioxide emissions would continue rising. They've dropped. Wait, what? Yeah, we have more people. Our economy is growing, and yet we are producing fewer carbon dioxide emissions, not more. Not just a fewer, less per person, less overall, because of this thing called technology, and because of using more natural gas instead of coal, and because of a lot of other things that have gone into it. But we're doing it. And by the way, I still say CO2, what I breathe out and the plant breathes in, is not pollution at all, and that's a total misnomer. But if that's big for you, then you should be super happy about what's going on with our energy. Number one in gas, number one in oil, and our CO2 emissions are going down. In fact, we are actually abiding by the Paris Accords, even though we pulled out of it, and these other countries that are still in it are cheating on it. But Trump, bad man, orange man, bad. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
And my name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show. You can jump in at 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD. You can also go online to thechadshow.com. And we were just talking a minute ago about energy and how much it's improved here in the United States of America. No thanks to President Obama, since he tried to stop the fracking and the horizontal drilling and the natural gas exploration and the oil drilling, certainly not on federal lands. But a lot of good news. And it just brought me to this piece by Bjorn Lomborg. I don't know if you're familiar with Bjorn Lomborg. Bjorn Lomborg is a guy who believes in man-made global warming, but he also says, what we're talking about doing about it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He said the trillions of dollars that we're funneling into trying to fight man-made global warming is not being used effectively. And really, if you want to save more lives, we should be using that money to make sure that everybody on the planet has clean drinking water. And, of course, now the left hates him because he won't fall into line and say every dollar should be spent fighting CO2 emissions. Well, he's got a piece out now that people on the left are really going to hate. Here's the headline. Your electric car and vegetarian diet are pointless virtue signaling in the fight against climate change. Oh, that's going to leave a mark. That's going to hurt, man. Virtue signaling. What are you talking? I bought this expensive electric car because I'm saving the planet, and I'm not eating meat because I'm saving the planet. Well, not really. According to Bjorn Lomborg, who is a scientist who studies this stuff and has a lot of stuff to back it up. He's a visiting professor at the Copenhagen Business School, director of the Copenhagen Consensus Center. He's written The Skeptical Environmentalist, Cool It, How to Spend $75 Billion to Make the World a Better Place, The Nobel Laureate's Guide to the Smartest Targets for the World, and most recently, Prioritizing Development. So the guy, he's kind of been around a little bit on this environmental thing. And he says, we're told if we just do these little things, we can save the planet. Switch to energy-efficient light bulbs. Wash your clothes in cold water. Eat less meat. Recycle more. Buy an electric car. This is what you must do to tackle climate change. But, he says, these things actually trivialize the challenge out there of global warming and divert our attention from what we really need to do if we're going to combat it. So this isn't a guy that says, don't worry about anything. He's not like me where I think, look, climate change has always been out here. The planet's been warmer. The planet's been colder. I can find you all kinds of satellite data that shows you that we are not destroying the planet. There certainly is not proof that the reason the planet has warmed recently is because of an SUV. They're basically using their hypothesis and saying it's fact. But he says he does believe that there is some man-made global warming. And what the left is telling you to do about it won't work. For example, he said, the British nature documentary presenter and environmental campaigner David Attenborough was once asked what, as an individual, one could do to fight climate change. And he said, I will unplug my phone charger when it isn't in use. If you leave things in the wall plugged in, and they're not really charging anything, they're still using some energy. So I will unplug my phone charger. Isn't that nice? Well, here's the thing. If you unplug your charger for a year, the resulting reduction in CO2 emissions would be less than 1/1,000th of your annual CO2 emission. Charging accounts for less than 1% of a phone's entire energy needs. The other 99% is what was required to manufacture it and operate data centers and cell phone towers. That's where the energy use is done, and that's all by fossil fuels. Whoops. All right, but how about becoming a vegetarian? I mean, that's how I'm really going to help. And Bjorn Lomborg says, look, I'm a vegetarian. I don't even own a car. But we got to be honest about what choices can achieve. Vegetarian diets reduce an individual CO2 emissions by about 4.3%. And then there's a rebound effect. What this means is the money that we save on cheaper vegetarian food, people spend it on goods and services that cause additional greenhouse gas emissions. You account for that, and really becoming vegetarian only decreases your CO2 output by about 2%. That ain't going to save the world, people. Oh, electric cars. Well, as I've said to people, you really want to tick off somebody in an electric car, like a totally electric car that you have to plug in? Here's what you do. You go, man, that is a sweet ride. I haven't seen one of those coal-fired cars. Can I try that out? What do you mean coal-fired car? Well, I mean, the state we're living in, 80% of our energy comes from the coal-fired power plant. So when you plug that in, you're powering it with coal, aren't you? Oh, they get so mad. Oh, man. That's just not nice. So Bjorn Lornberg says, electric cars generating the electricity they require almost always involves burning fossil fuels. Yep. And producing energy-intensive batteries for the car is really bad for the environment and generates quite a bit of CO2 emissions. In fact, according to the International Energy Agency, an electric car with a range of about 249 miles has a huge carbon deficit when you first start driving it. You've got to drive it for more than 37,000 miles before you break even on the CO2. And most people use an electric car as their second car and drive it shorter distances and then sell it. Okay. Despite subsidies of about $10,000 per car, battery-powered electric cars represent less than 1/3 of 1% of the cars on the road. And even with all the subsidies and more political pressure, the expectation is by 2040, they might account for 15% of the cars on the road. But if that comes to pass, which I don't think it will, but even if that comes to pass, that will reduce CO2 emissions by about 1%. Well, you got to start somewhere. I know, I'm just saying, he's just trying to point out this is not going to do what you think it's going to do. We already spend $129 billion a year subsidizing solar and wind energy. Right now, we're getting about 1.1% of our global energy needs from them. $129 billion of subsidies to get 1.1% of our energy. Oh, that's good. In fact, the International Energy Agency Executive Director said this: if you think you can save the climate with electric cars, you're completely wrong. Really? 2018, electric cars saved 40 million tons of CO2 worldwide. See? Well, that's equivalent to reducing global temperatures by 0.0000018 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. Oh. Fossil fuels currently meet about 81% of our energy needs. Even if every promised climate policy in the Paris Accord is achieved by 2040, fossil fuels will then deliver 74% of all our energy. Wow. So what next? He says if you really want to help, the one individual action that citizens could take would be to demand a vast increase in spending on green energy research and development so that these energy sources become cheap enough to compete with fossil fuels, the only real way to help fight climate change. That's, of course, if you believe that fossil fuels are causing it. But he's saying, all these little things that people think they're doing and all this stuff that's actually harming our economy when you get right down to it, just isn't working. They're even talking about, that leads me right into this thing in San Francisco, which, of course, this is where it's going to start. There are some San Francisco coffee shops that are banning disposable coffee cups. But I like to get my coffee to go. Well, you can rent a cup. Rent a coffee cup? Yeah. We'll let you rent a coffee cup, and you just put a deposit, and when you bring it back, we'll give you your money back on that coffee cup. Or you can just bring your own coffee cup. Can I bring that really big one and you still charge me the same price? Well, we'll talk about that. But, maybe we'll give you a glass jar. We'll rent you a cup. You can bring your own cup. I'm not making this up. First, they came after your straws, and you didn't say anything because you don't use straws. Then they came after your styrofoam, and you didn't say anything because you don't care about styrofoam. And then they came for your coffee cups. No, not the coffee cups. See, because you didn't care about the straw, they're now coming for the cup. I don't think he should have done that joke because that joke is like a Holocaust joke, and I don't think we should be doing those jokes. It's just a joke. Oh, there's certain things you don't joke about. So there we go with the coffee cup. Are you ready to rent a coffee cup? And again, this is virtue signaling. That's all this is. Coffee cups are not killing the planet. We have so much landfill space. It'll run out eventually. Well, I don't think it will, actually, because it's in the land and it's buried, and then you know what happens over years and years and years is it compacts down and then it turns into methane, and there are countries around the world that actually use that methane as energy producing methane, and then you just can then put more stuff in it, and we've got hundreds of years of space for landfills here in the United States of America. You know what really isn't working is recycling. I'm sorry, but it isn't. I mean, it works for glass, kind of, and it works for aluminum. The rest of it, it actually isn't working. People don't separate it correctly. It goes to the wrong place. Some of these places that say they recycle, it turns out with a little spy camera, you find out that they're just dumping it in the trash. I mean, it costs more to recycle than it is to make new stuff in many instances. When you try to recycle things like newspaper and regular paper, you use so much water to try to clean it and turn it into the pulp and everything else that it's got to do that you're destroying the environment by the amount of water that you're using. And on and on and on we go. We're finding out with the extra trucks you have to have, recycling really isn't working very well. In most places, it's not working at all. But no, we're going to get rid of the coffee cup. Blue Bottle is starting small, with plans to stop using paper cups at 2 of its San Francisco area branches in 2020. It's part of a pledge to go zero waste by the end of next year. And Coffee to Go customers will have to bring their own mug or pay a deposit for a reusable cup, which they can return for a refund. The deposit will be between $3 and $5. We expect to lose some business. We know some of our guests won't like it. We're prepared for that. Yeah, screw the customer. Who cares about them? Okay. This is just another little bit of virtue signaling coming out of San Francisco. And please, the rest of the nation, quit trying to do stuff that San Francisco does. Have you seen that city? Have you visited that city recently? Have you walked the streets of San Francisco? Have you seen the homeless problem? Have you seen the poo-poo problem? This is not good. And we're copying them? People are okay, I'm not don't stoop to their level, Greg. Don't do it. I won't. Promise. 844-DIG-CHAD, get you on board. 844-DIG-CHAD. Got an update here on what's going on with the FISA court abuses, because now we've got the U.S. Attorney John Durham working with a former director of the NSA. I'll get you all the details about that in just a second. My name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
And my name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Benson Show. You can jump in as well at 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD, and you are part of the broadcast. You can go to thechadshow.com as well. How about this one now? This is from the Washington Examiner. The former director of the NSA, the National Security Agency, sitting down with U.S. Attorney John Durham. They're looking into the origins and the conduct of the Trump-Russia investigation. And we know from the Inspector General report that it's pretty doggone shady. That it's really shady on how they got the FISA warrants. It's really shady on how they kept using the so-called Steele dossier even when they knew the source of the Steele dossier said, yeah, there's some exaggerations and jesting, and, didn't really mean everything that was in here. Don't even know if all this was true. It kept, 17 significant errors by the FBI of really lies, of omission and commission, including changing a document to have it say exactly the opposite of what was true, not going back and telling the FISA court when things changed, making it seem to the FISA court that Carter Page was actually not working and cooperating with the CIA when he was, and on and on and on. Crazy stuff. And Comey thinks he's been vindicated by it, which is just bizarre. Well, now the former director of the NSA sitting down with U.S. Attorney John Durham. It's Admiral Mike Rogers. He retired in 2018. And they think the reason he's being talked to is because of how much he did in intelligence. His experiences uncovering Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act violations and his role in the intelligence community's assessment of Russian interference, because his people were the only ones that said they only had moderate confidence that Putin actively tried to help Trump while trying to harm Clinton in the election. He said, I wouldn't call it a discrepancy. I'd call it an honest difference of opinion between three different organizations. And in the end, I made that call. He said that back in May of 2017. He said it didn't have the same level of sourcing and the same level of multiple sources. In other words, he wasn't buying into all this. In 2016, he helped expose the FISA flaws of a different kind by the NSA and the FBI. In fact, what he found that October is the Bureau received its first page surveillance warrant, that'd be Carter Page. Rogers notified the FISA court of an NSA Inspector General report that found that the agency was actually pulling data directly from the internet and improperly searching it for information related to Americans, which is in violation of the laws that go to the FISA court. FISA court ruling from April 2017. It showed that the high volume of violations, and that month the NSA announced it ended all searches where the foreign intelligence target was neither the sender nor receiver of a communication, but was mentioned within it. In other words, they were fishing big, man. They were expanding the web. They were throwing out this net that if the person's name was even mentioned, we're spying on that. Oh, we don't like the term spy. We like the term surveillance. You can call it whatever you want, but that's what was going on. And then the same FISA court ruling stated that by early 2016, the Department of Justice learned that the FBI gave contractors access to massive amounts of FISA information beyond what was necessary to respond to the request. And they also found that these abuses found the FBI violated constitutional protections against unreasonable searches and seizures. So basically, all the fears you've had about the FISA court and how these warrants are given and what is actually being surveilled and what isn't, and all the promises we were given about how this would never be abused, it's all a bunch of lies. And it's why people like Rand Paul deserve an apology when he stood up during the terrorism crisis and said, hey, look, yes, we've got to go after these terrorists, but we also got to be careful we're not setting up a system that will allow our government to spy on us. And everybody poo-pooed him. I will not be poo-pooed. He was poo-pooed. And he was right. And they need some serious looks at exactly what kind of abuses are ongoing and what we should do, maybe even to shut this thing down. The Bidens left somebody out of their Christmas card. We'll tell you about that. Oh, sorry. Out of time. My name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad. This is The Chad Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad, and this is The Chad Show. You can jump in at 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD. You can go online, thechadshow.com. The Bidens sent out their Christmas picture. Did you get one? Did you get I didn't either. But they put it up on Twitter for people like you and me that aren't high enough class and elite enough to get one. So why do you have to do that? They're trying to send out a Christmas picture. You don't know the Bidens. You're right. That was wrong of me. I'm sorry. I apologize. So on Twitter, Joe Biden put up a photo, or at least his handlers did. I don't think Joe really knows how to work Twitter. But Joe posted a photo on Twitter. Have you seen Joe? Come on. You can't get mad at me for that one. He looks like your great-grandfather, and there's no way he knows how to use Twitter. So he's on Twitter, and late Christmas morning, they put up this picture that included most of his family. What do you mean most of his? Well, here's what it said. All right. May your time with loved ones be full of peace, laughter, and joy. Merry Christmas and happy holidays with love from my family to yours. The problem is his immediate family wasn't in there. His son, Hunter, nor his new daughter-in-law appear in the photo. Whoops. Well, you know, sometimes it's hard to get the whole family together to take a photo. I mean, I'm sure that's all it is. Has nothing to do with Ukraine and Burisma. Has nothing to do with the fact that Hunter Biden just had a paternity test because he said he hadn't had sexual relations with this woman. She said, oh, yes, you did, and this is your child. He said, oh, no, it's not, and I'm not paying you a penny. And then the paternity DNA test came back, and sure enough, it's his kid, but Joe Biden won't talk about that. And if you ask him, you're a horrible person, and, you must be a Fox News reporter because only Fox News has the temerity to ask that. But I guarantee you right now that if one of Donald Trump's sons had an illegitimate child that he claimed wasn't his, and the DNA test came back and said it was positive, they'd be asking Donald Trump about it. But, that's different. Okay, so he's not in the picture. Now, I just think that's wrong. Come on, Joe. Be a man. Put your son and his new wife in your photo. Well, it's been kind of a hard couple years for Hunter Biden, and maybe now is just not the time. Hunter Biden is 49. Christmas Eve was when the news broke that private investigators hired by the mother of Hunter Biden's 16-month-old child put in a court filing that Hunter Biden is the subject of multiple criminal investigations. Now his lawyers say, "Oh, that's ridiculous. That's a scheme by a non-party to make scandalous allegations in the pending suit to gain some quick media attention." Could be, but with Hunter Biden, you never know. This is the guy that has had big-time trouble with drugs and was kicked out of the Navy after testing positive for cocaine. He was arrested for possession of a controlled substance in 1988. Charge was later expunged from his record. He's admitted using cocaine as recently as 2016. I mean, the guy's had some issues. And look, we've all had issues. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. There's no doubt about that. But normally, when this happens to a Republican family, it's big news. Hunter Biden has previously denied having relations with this woman, even though the paternity test said, yes, that's his kid. The Washington Examiner points out that this woman previously worked as a stripper in Washington. Dancer! Okay, stripper dancer. Hunter Biden's role on the corporate board of Burisma, of course, is big in the news. And both Hunter Biden's father and mother have maintained that their son's position with Burisma in the Ukraine, which he earned more than $50,000 a month at times, was appropriate. Even though he didn't know anything about energy, didn't speak Ukrainian, and has even admitted the only reason he's on most of the boards he's on is because his last name is Biden. But by golly, I can't believe people are asking about this. I mean, this is too much. Hunter Biden, by the way, dated this woman what was it? Hold on one second. Let me make sure I get this right. Because it's a little strange how quickly they got married. They got engaged, 6 days after meeting. Hey, look, man, it's his life. At the time that he met this woman, he was dating the widow of his brother who had died of brain cancer. It's a little weird. Okay, you got to just say at least it's a little weird. It could easily be a reality show. And he's not in the family photo. And that's what that's the whole reason I brought it. Look, if this is your son and he's had all these problems, and I'm not even kidding here, I would respect Joe Biden more if he had him in the Christmas card and said, look, my family's like your family. It's dysfunctional. We all have flaws. We all have problems. But I'm going to welcome my son back no matter what because I have unconditional love for him. Now, I want him to straighten up his act. I want him to take care of this son that he said he didn't have. I want him to stop doing the drugs. I want him to get his life in order. I want him to quit using my name to get on every board. Oh, wait. I kind of help him with that. But I want him to, I want to straighten this kid out. But I'm always going to welcome my son back because I love my son. I would have a lot more respect for him doing that. Oh, yeah, I just couldn't make the Christmas card. I'm sure that's what I couldn't find time to get into the Christmas card. Okay. Meanwhile, we move on to Elizabeth Warren. I mean, there's just a lot of good stuff on these people today. Elizabeth Warren in trouble. Her brother is saying she's a liar. Wait, what? Well, I mean, you're talking about the American Indian thing. We all know that. No. Okay, you're talking about where she said she was fired from her first job as a teacher because she was pregnant. We all know that was a lie. She changed that. No, I'm not talking about that one. No, this is a new one. This is where she now on the campaign trail is calling her father a janitor. And her brother's not happy with that. Dan Herring is, quote, furious, according to Spencer Neal, to learn that Elizabeth Warren is calling their dad a janitor. The Boston Globe reports, according to a family friend, David has disagreed with the way Warren calls herself the daughter of a janitor, as she describes the work he found after losing a job as a salesman after a heart attack. Speaking with a family friend, Herring was adamant that his father was a maintenance worker, not a janitor. My dad was never a janitor, he told the Globe. Now, first you might say, well, wait a second. What's wrong with being a janitor? Nothing. It's honest work. If that's what you can get, that's what you can get. But here's the thing. Two things, really. Number one, for good or for bad, most men identify themselves with their job. And most men don't want to be a janitor. Now, it's a fine entry-level job. It's fine if that's all you can get. But most people would like to rise above being a janitor. If you ask most janitors, they'd like to rise above being a janitor. So when you say that about somebody's dad, it might tick him off. And it's his own sister saying it, and he's mad because it's not true. Maintenance worker, janitor. I mean, come on, Greg. There's a big difference between a janitor and a maintenance worker. The maintenance worker is the guy that goes around and fixes everything. The janitor's the guy that sweeps and mops the floor. There's a big difference. Warren has referred to her father as a maintenance man in the past, but has started using the term janitor while on the campaign trail. And back in 2012, in a speech titled Values in the Economic Crisis, she did not identify her father as a janitor. She said this, quote, my father held a series of jobs. His last one was mowing lawns and cleaning swimming pools for an apartment house. Now here's the other part of this. Why is she talking about it like this? Why is she trying to play down what jobs her dad had? Is it that she's trying to say being a janitor or somebody who mows lawns is a great thing? No. And it's not a bad thing. But it's like she's trying to virtue signal. She's, I'm not rich. I'm not a millionaire or billionaire. I come from a family where my dad was a janitor or mowed lawns or cleaned swimming pools. And that, according to the left, makes you better somehow than if your dad was a small businessman or a doctor or a lawyer. Why? Why have we gotten to this class warfare nonsense that you should be ashamed if your parents did well? Let's say your dad started off with a small company and he grew it into a mid-size or even a large company and ended up making millions of dollars and hiring thousands of people and doing great things in the community. Should you be ashamed of that now? We can't elect somebody like that. Their parents were too rich. What? But if, my father was a janitor and my mother did sewing out of the closet and that's how we survived. Well, that's great. Does that make you more qualified to be president? Well, let you know that I know how the little guy thinks. Does anybody really think Elizabeth Warren is living like the, quote, little guy any more than President Trump is living as the, quote, little guy? I don't want the little guy, by the way, being the president. I want somebody who has climbed up from being the little guy or somebody who's really good at running things to be the president. How about you? So she's caught lying again. Just like she said that her kids didn't go to private school, they did. Just like she said she was an American Indian, she's not. Just like she said she was fired for being pregnant, she wasn't. And just like this one, where she now falsely suggests that she couldn't go to college because she couldn't afford it. Now, this is the really tricky little lie. There are lies of commission, where you say something that's not true, and there are lies of omission, where you just leave some things out. So you're not really saying a lie, but you're sure leaving out some things that pretty much makes it a lie. So here's what she tweeted on Monday. By the time I graduated high school, my folks couldn't even afford a college application, much less 4 years of college. High school debate gave me amazing opportunities, and it was great to meet Oklahoma's state champions. She was at a high school in Oklahoma, and she was looking at her past high school debate trophies, and then she met the high school debate team. But from that tweet, By the time I graduated high school, my folks couldn't even afford a college application, much less 4 years of college. High school debate gave me amazing opportunities. It was great to meet Oklahoma State champions. How do you think she went to college if you looked at that tweet? I mean, you could very easily think she didn't go to college because she couldn't afford it, right? Couldn't even afford an application. But if you actually look at the story, she went to George Washington University. How? She got a debate scholarship. Oh, something else left out. She dropped out after a couple of years to get married. That doesn't go well with the progressives. You gave up your career for a man? Yep, she dropped out and got married. And then she tweeted later, back in November, she tweeted something else back in November that is also a little bit of a lie of omission. I'll get you that one in just a second. And then I want us to get into Antonio Brown from the NFL getting his 4th, 5th, 6th chance. Is that good or bad for the league? And do you care? We'll get to all that in just a minute. My name is Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
And I'm Greg Knapp, back in for Chad on The Chad Show. 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD, and you're in. TheChadShow.com. We were talking about Elizabeth Warren and some of her lies, and even her brother's mad now that he says she's lying about their dad. And she also kind of did some sneaky stuff on Twitter about her college situation, that her parents were so poor she couldn't afford a college application, let alone tuition. Well, she had a full ride to George Washington University, and then she dropped out to get married. So there was a way for her to go to college. But see, she has to put forward this idea so that she can tell you why she needs to get you free college education, because there's no way anybody could pay for it now, unless you're just lucky and have these really rich parents, except I know people right now, friends of mine whose kids are paying their own way. They're starting out going to community college, living at home, and working and paying for it. And they're saving up enough money while they're going to community college that they can finish the last 2 years at a 4-year university. Yeah, but that's not fair. That's not how it should be. If it gets very, very messy very, very quickly, it's awesome that they're able to do that. And one of the reasons that college tuition has gone up is because of all the government subsidies for it. That's a huge part of the problem with the extreme increase in the amount of college tuition. And who runs these institutions? The far lefties. Why are they charging so much? Why has the cost of tuition skyrocketed? Anyway, back to Elizabeth Warren. Back in November, she tweeted this out. I got my degree thanks to a quality public college where tuition was just $50 a semester. That kind of opportunity doesn't exist for students today. I'm fighting for universal free public 2-year, 4-year, and technical college so that every student can live their dream. But wait a second. She just tweeted out the other day that she was so poor she couldn't even afford a college application, let alone tuition. And now she's telling us she went to a public school, the University of Houston, for $50 a semester. So which was it? She couldn't afford it or she went? The University of Houston, by the way, as Pajamas Media reporting, wasn't the only public college with affordable tuition. Which means even if she hadn't gotten the scholarship to George Washington University, where she dropped out, she still could have gone to college right out of high school for $50 a semester. But, hey, look, it's not really about whether what she's telling you is true or not. It's about the narrative of what she's telling you. It's just about the idea that she's telling you, that it's hard for some people to go to college. Yeah, I know. And nobody said life was fair. Nobody said that some people aren't going to have an easier time of it than others. Well, it's just not right. But wait a second. So because your parents worked hard, saved their money all their life, and put money aside for you to go to college, your parents should now also have to pay for everybody else to go to college? How is that fair? And are you supposed to apologize for the fact that your parents worked really hard to save up this money so that you could go to college? Somehow that makes you less of a college student than somebody whose parents didn't save the money? Some people couldn't afford to. Absolutely. Other parents just decide we don't want to. We're going to spend our money. So you're on your own. So the rest of us are supposed to pay for that? No. K through 12, paid for by the taxpayer, great idea. Everybody has a great chance. Once you're out of high school, man, you're 18, you're an adult, you're on your own. See, that's just what we're talking about. You don't care about it. I care about everybody. And I believe in you as an 18-year-old out of high school that if you want a college degree badly enough, you're going to find a way to get it. But you know what? Maybe college degree is not for you. Maybe what you should do is start working for somebody else who's doing what you want to do, apprentice with them, figure out how to do it, and start your own company and make more than the people who are in college. You know who didn't finish their college career? Bill Gates. You know who didn't finish their college career? Steve Jobs. Well, there's only one of each of them. You're right, but there's an awful lot of people that decided, you know what? We don't need that college degree. There's also a lot of people that decided, I do need that degree. I'm going to work my way through it. I'm going to work for a company that will put me through college. I'm going to work full-time and go to school part-time. I'm going to find a way to get it done because that's what I want to do, and I'm going to pay for it. I don't expect everybody else to do it for me. That used to be America. Now when you say that, somehow you're the bad guy. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. 844-DIG-CHAD. You know who's going to get another chance? Antonio Brown. We'll hit that in a second. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Greg Knapp. I'm in for Chad on The Chad Show. Hope you had a fantastic Christmas. Can't wait for the new year. It's going to be even better than this year. What do you mean even better? This year was horrible. No, it was really good. We talked about that earlier. Great decade that we lived through. Most prosperous decade in the history of the planet. And by the way, the environment got better. No. Yeah, that's true. Antonio Brown back in the news. Now, if you don't follow sports, you might not know Antonio Brown. I say might because even if you don't follow sports, he's kind of been in the news a lot because he single-handedly destroyed a career that was making him millions of dollars. He's playing for the Steelers, and he just becomes a no-show. Becomes such a hard guy to get along with that the Steelers just cut him loose. Now, a lot of people think he did that on purpose because he really wanted to play for the New England Patriots. But he didn't get traded to the New England Patriots. He got to the Oakland Raiders, which, you know, is a pretty good fit for somebody like Antonio Brown, who's had a lot of behavior issues with his team and teammates. So then he does all these kind of shenanigans at the Oakland Raiders to the point that they're like, dude, just get out of here. You're killing us. And guess who picks him up? The New England Patriots. He's exactly where he wanted to be. People say, oh, he is crazy like a fox because everybody thought he was messing up, but he ended up getting people so mad at him that he got exactly where he wanted to go, and that's hard to do in the NFL, and he ended up at New England, and he's in a perfect spot, and who knows, he may even win a Super Bowl this year, and he blew it. He got accused of some shenanigans. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say anything that's right on the edge of being true. There was an issue where a woman accused him of doing some things that were either criminal or close to criminal, and it didn't go well from there, and the New England Patriots cut him loose. Well, here's the thing. The NFL never suspended him, never said he couldn't play, because with the players' agreement, you can't just tell a player he can't make a living based on somebody's allegation. There has to actually be, like, you know, evidence and, you know, maybe even an arrest. And there wasn't any of that. So Antonio Brown now has a chance. Maybe he's going to play for the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are a really good team. And many people are pegging them to go to the Super Bowl, maybe even win the thing. So he's now working out for the New Orleans Saints just 2 days before their Week 17 game against the Carolina Panthers. Now, he put it up on his Instagram story, and according to ESPN, the Saints coach, Sean Payton, is doing these workouts just to make sure that he has enough wide receivers for the playoffs. Could he jump in and play and become a Super Bowl winner at the end of the playoffs? Hey, the Seattle Seahawks just picked up Marshawn Lynch. And I thought about this yesterday. With the beating that your body takes during an NFL season, and everybody's beat up by now, and you're about to go into this playoff push, it'd probably be pretty smart to pick up a couple extra guys. I mean, if you could pick up an extra running back with fresh legs, somebody that hasn't played all year but is a really good player, hey, man, we only want you back for 3 games. And you say, well, people can't just come back for 3 games. Well, if they've been working out, they can. You bring up somebody like Antonio Brown. He's fresh, man. He hasn't been hit yet. Get him out there. What could he do? And then we have the people, well, we should not be rewarding the bad behavior of Antonio Brown. And I can understand where you're coming from on that. I really can, because there's been some really bad behavior by this guy. However, if you're the New Orleans Saints or any NFL franchise, what are you supposed to do? Win. That's what you're supposed to do. Nothing else. So the guy's not arrested. The guy hasn't been suspended by the league. The guy's available. We know he's actually a really, really good player. What's the problem? Well, but he's been accused of things. But he hasn't been arrested. He hasn't been proven to have done any of these things. So what now? I think the Saints would be smart to pick him up. What do you think? 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD, get you in. Shifting gears, I got to go to what's happening in Virginia School District. Karen Townsend wrote a good piece on this, that the Fairfax County Public Schools in Northern Virginia, real close to D.C., is putting in a new policy starting next month. You ready? 1 day a year, students can skip school to protest. Wait. What? Yeah, because we want to turn these students into political activists. We do? I thought the point of going to school was to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic and, maybe some arts and sciences along the way. We wanted to become political activists? Some people want their kids to become political activists. Others would like them to be educated and then decide for themselves when they're older what they really want their political beliefs to be and where they would think they'd want to move our system along. In fact, most people I know don't want their kid to become a, quote, political activist if what you mean by that is the guy standing on the side of the road saying, hey, hey, ho, ho, so-and-so has got to go, or whatever they're going to say. No, I don't want that. Certainly not during school time. Listen, if you really want to protest, do it on the weekend. The people who are willing to skip school to protest, man, I would have skipped school to protest anything. Greg, we're having a protest rally. You want to skip school? Can I get out of trigonometry? Yeah, man, all day. Let's do it. We didn't even tell you what we're protesting. I don't care. Is there going to be food there? Yeah, man, we're having lunch. I'm in. That's all it would take. I didn't know a whole lot about politics. I didn't really care a whole lot about politics. I wanted to play basketball, go out with a pretty girl, eat good food, and chill out. That's what I wanted to do. I know I had a lot of growing up to do, but that's what I wanted to do. Protest on the weekend if you really care. And you know what this is going to be. This is why, and the Washington Post is talking about the difference between the conservative parents and the liberal parents. And the liberal parents seem to think this is a good idea. The conservative parents don't seem to as much. And yeah, you want to know why? Because the conservative parents have looked at the schools and they see how liberal they've become. Let me ask you a question. Hey, are there any public schools that have been giving kids time off to go protest for a pro-life cause? Or to go out and protest in favor of President Trump? H to the no. But there's plenty that would let him do far left things like gun control and so-called abortion rights and on we go. And that's why there's an awful lot of parents that are saying no. It's why conservatives support school choice. It's why we're tired of the schools pushing political indoctrination at the high school and even younger levels. And so now they're going to do this? Well, there's some guidelines here. I mean, students have to fill out a form at least 2 days ahead of the planned absence, and you have to explain the reason you want to miss school, and they have to obtain permission from a parent or guardian, and they have to stop by the school campus at least once on the day of the excused absence. And they said, but, we're not going to tell them no. Well, then why are you reading over it? Well, it's just a cursory inspection. Just to make sure that they're doing something. Can't figure out why people would be mad about this. I mean, why wouldn't you want? And they want it. The people in Virginia are hoping this will spread all across the nation. See, this is on the heels of Greta Thunberg. And you know she has been named Person of the Year by Time Magazine, right? It's the young 16-year-old girl who has, as Karen Townsend puts it, cultish support of her by young people and manipulative adults. And her whole thing started with what she called Fridays for Future movement, where she encourages school students around the world skip school on Fridays and take to the streets in protests over climate change. This is the kind of stuff that we're going to be getting as more and more schools start to do this. There's 188,000 students in Fairfax County Public Schools just outside of D.C. What do you think they'll be protesting? Can't figure out why some people don't think that's a great idea. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board the program. Michael Moore is talking again. He was on a podcast called Democracy Now! And they were talking about what happened in Flint, Michigan with the water situation. And by the way, if you haven't followed that, the numbers came in 2018, and it was wrong what happened in Flint, Michigan. They switched from one river as the water supply to another river for the water supply, and lead got in the water. The thing is, the only reason lead got in the water is they forgot to put a certain phosphate in the water that stops the pipes from corroding. That's the only difference. The water wasn't the problem. The pipes were without the phosphate. Then once they put that phosphate back in, now everything's fine in the Flint water. And the numbers, and the New York Times had this piece a couple years ago, or I guess it was a year and a half ago now. None of the children in Flint ever had any lead poisoning. In fact, the elevation of lead in the blood of children in Flint, Michigan was the amount you would see in a random anomaly. There was no lead poisoning. No one died from lead poisoning in Flint, Michigan. No one was treated for lead poisoning in Flint, Michigan. Not even treated. Yet celebrities came to the Flint hospital. Can you show us the children's ward where you treated the lead poisoning? We didn't have any lead poisoning. But I saw it all over the news. No, it didn't happen. No, it didn't happen. But Michael Moore, in this podcast, said he could not rule out that black people were targeted in the Flint, Michigan thing. Wow. So as he's finishing that up, he jumps into saying white people haven't changed and white people are dangerous. Let me hear cut one, please, from Michael Moore.
I refuse to participate in post-racial America. I refuse to say because we elected Obama that suddenly that means everything's okay. White people have changed. White people have not changed. Two-thirds of all white guys voted for Trump. That means anytime you see three white guys walking at you down the street toward you, two of them voted for Trump. You need to move over to the other sidewalk because these are not good people that are walking towards you. You should be afraid of them.
Yeah. You hear the people? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm right there with you, bud. Yeah. You preach it, bro. Oh, yeah. I'm right there. Are you listening to this guy? I refuse to participate in post-racial America. I refuse to say because we elected Obama that suddenly that means everything is okay. White people have changed. Okay. Let's take this just slowly. All right. I agree we're not in post-racial America. I don't know that we'll ever be in post-racial America because we're different races. And as long as the world has been spinning, people have gravitated towards their tribe from different shades of black and different shades of white and different accents and different areas of the world that they live in, and whether they live in the valley or the hill or they're a Hatfield or a McCoy. There is always tribalism, and there probably always will be. But to say nothing's changed is sheer nonsense. Now, I also agree that just because we elected Obama, that suddenly doesn't mean everything's okay. And in fact, I think electing Obama made a lot of things not okay. But what he was trying to say is that doesn't mean that no one's racist anymore. And I would also agree with that. Because I will contest to you that Michael Moore is racist. Because he's lumping all white people into one category and saying that they're all a bunch of racists. Except for him. I mean, there are some exceptions. But he's being racist. There are still racists on the planet. There's no doubt about it. There are racists in America. There are racist white people. There are racist black people. There are racist Hispanic people. There are racist Asian people. No. You have to have power before you can be racist. That's a bunch of crap. If you have an opinion about somebody simply because of the color of your skin, that's racist. If you hate somebody because of the color of their skin, that's racist. Whether you have power or not, however you want to define it, that's racist. And that describes Michael Moore and an awful lot of people on the left. And he's trying to say it describes you. The hatred for you, simply because you disagree with him on politics, is palpable. We got more on this in just a second. 844-DIG-CHAD gets you on board. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show. We were talking about Michael Moore and this nonsense that he's spewing on the Democracy Now! Podcast that really is racist, if you think about it. 844-DIG-CHAD, 844-DIG-CHAD. Let me hear that cut one more time to set this up. This is Michael Moore after he says he can't rule out that black people were targeted in the Flint, Michigan water crisis. Go ahead.
I refuse to participate in post-racial America. I refuse to say because we elected Obama that suddenly that means everything's okay. White people have changed. White people have not changed. Two-thirds of all white guys voted for Trump. That means anytime you see three white guys walking at you down the street toward you, two of them voted for Trump. You need to move over to the other sidewalk because these are not good people that are walking towards you. You should be afraid of them.
Now I want you to separate the word, I want you to change out the word white for black. Is that not a racist statement? Well, that's different. I want you to change out the word white for Hispanic. Is that not racist? Change out the word white for Asian. Is that not racist? Any other ethnicity or race, if this had been said, he would be persona non grata everywhere, and rightly so. But because he said it about white people, that's okay. Because according to people like Michael Moore and Hillary Clinton and the media and celebrities, you are deplorable because you voted for President Trump. You are racist. You are a misogynist. You are a xenophobe. You are a homophobe. You are a transgenderphobe. You are the worst person on the planet simply because you voted for the bad orange man. Now, it could be because you thought his policies were better. It could be because you said, yeah, he's got some moral issues, so does Hillary Clinton. And these people, just because they assume and try to act like it's a fact that Trump is racist, that therefore you are. They don't have to have proof. They don't have to have evidence. They don't have to have anything. This is what they've set up. So since you are a white person, and 2 out of 3 of you voted for Trump, since you're a white dude, and 2 out of 3 voted for Trump, then you are a horrible, awful, evil person that we should be afraid of. And of course, if you're that bad, we should be able to do anything we want to you. I mean, that's how you get Antifa. Calling you Nazis and saying, we stormed the beaches of Normandy to fight the Nazis. Why can't we beat you up? Simply because you disagree with them politically. Now, Michael Moore will never say that, so he has to say it's because you're a racist. What he's saying is racist, but he's calling you a racist. That's called projection. He is putting on you what he actually believes. He looks at people and instantly looks at the color of their skin and thinks they're supposed to think a certain way. And in fact, when his buddy here on the Democracy Now! Podcast says something smart about the third person, he said 2 out of 3 of those guys are Trump voters, and he goes, yeah, and the other guy probably wanted to. Michael Moore says this.
The third one is you and me.
Yeah. Right.
We're traitors. We're traitors to our race. That's how they see us too, by the way.
No, that third guy's probably like you and me, but we're traitors to our race. That's how they see us, by the way. No, I voted for Trump. I don't see you that way at all, Michael Moore. I don't see you as a traitor to your race, because I don't think a race equals a mindset. I don't think a race equals an ideology. I don't think a race should equal who you vote for. I don't see people based on their race as where they belong and fit into society like you do. That's another projection from Michael Moore. This guy has some really twisted up things going on in his head, and he's trying to put them on you. This is how they think about you. My name's Greg Knapp, in for Chad on The Chad Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show.